Hello, my name is Barry, and as a neuropsychologist, I'd like to share some insights with you. As we age, our social lives undergo a quiet transformation, and it's not a bad thing. From losing loved ones to shifting priorities, the way we connect with others changes, sometimes leaving us wondering if we're becoming more isolated. But what if this evolution in our relationships is not a sign of decline, but a reflection of our growing wisdom and sense of self? Here are 9 powerful reasons why your social circle shrinks with age and why that's not just normal, it can be incredibly freeing. Number 1, the loss of friends and family and the challenge of making new connections. As we grow older, particularly past the age of 65, the natural progression of life brings about inevitable changes in our social circles. Friends and family members of similar age begin to pass away, become incapacitated, or spend much of their time struggling with illness. The once vibrant social fabric that was woven over the years starts to thin. While I'm no more antisocial now than I was 20 years ago, I find that there are fewer people with whom I can interact and share meaningful moments. This isn't to say that the absence of people is felt as loneliness or deprivation. On the contrary, I consider myself remarkably fortunate to be able to sit here at my computer in my own home, to pay my own bills, and to maintain a sense of independence. These are blessings that many of my peers no longer enjoy, and I'm grateful for them. But the reality remains. Social situations don't always lend themselves to someone of my age. The energy, pace, and topics of conversation often don't match the interests or needs of a person who has lived through many decades. Another realization that hits as we approach our later years is the difficulty of making new friends. When we're younger, it's easy to meet people, expand our circle, and build new connections. The world is full of opportunities, and we're often surrounded by people who share similar interests and energy levels. However, as we age, the effort required to make new friends becomes more challenging. Reaching out to others, attending social gatherings, and finding people with whom we truly connect takes more intentionality and persistence. Things that aren't always easy when physical health, energy, or the motivation to venture outside might be less than it once was. It's important to recognize that, although this situation can seem isolating at times, it's part of the natural course of life. However, it's also essential to acknowledge the efforts we must make to continue reaching out, whether by engaging in smaller, more intimate groups or by finding new ways to connect, whether through hobbies, community activities, or even online platforms. The process might take more effort, but it's far from impossible. The key is consistency, patience, and an openness to new experiences, something that becomes even more valuable as we age. When you're younger, it's relatively easy to build and maintain a local circle of friends. You can make plans spontaneously, and there's a greater sense of camaraderie in everyday life. But as you get older, especially after major life events like college or career shifts, those friendships often scatter across the country or even the globe. I have a tight-knit group of about 10 close friends from college, but after a decade, most of us no longer live in the same place. Now maintaining those relationships requires significant effort, and it's difficult to form new, close bonds when the people you would usually connect with are far away. It's not just about proximity. As you get older, it also becomes harder to find people who align with your energy and interests. Even as a self-identified extrovert, I found that the need for socializing has evolved. While I still enjoy connecting with people, I no longer feel the need to be out at parties or constantly engaging with a large group. My priorities have shifted, and I find satisfaction in quiet, quality time with my wife and kids. I don't feel like I'm missing out on something by staying home. In fact, I've learned to value those moments more than I ever did when I was younger. The reality is that I no longer tolerate people who don't align with my values or personality. When I was younger, I might have kept people in my life simply because they were friends, even if I didn't truly like them. Now I've become much more discerning about who I spend my time with. If I don't like someone, I'm quick to cut ties. And as a result, my social circle has become much smaller, but it's made up of people I genuinely enjoy and trust. This shift in perspective doesn't make me any less social. Rather, it makes me more intentional about how I spend my time. It's a reminder that quality, not quantity, matters when it comes to relationships. And this process of refining our social circles is a natural part of aging. As our time becomes more precious, so does the company we keep. If you've noticed a similar trend in your own life, know that you're not alone. It's perfectly natural, and it's part of embracing the beautiful process of aging. By honing in on the people and activities that truly matter to you, you can find a fulfilling, balanced life at any stage. And remember, it's not about cutting people off. It's about finding peace with the relationships you keep and creating space for more meaningful connections, even if they're fewer. Embrace the freedom that comes with being more selective about your social circle. In doing so, you're not just protecting your time, you're also inviting more authentic and enriching relationships into your life. Number 2, accumulation of memories of betrayal and wickedness. As we age, the passage of time inevitably brings experiences of hurt, betrayal, and disappointment. These painful moments accumulate over the years, gradually shaping our worldview. For many, the older we get, the more memories we accumulate of when trust was broken or when kindness was met with cruelty. These experiences can leave emotional scars that make it harder to open up and connect with others in the future. For some, the weight of these betrayals and disappointments becomes overwhelming. As time goes on, they find it more difficult to trust others or to engage in new relationships. Their hearts become heavy with the emotional toll of past experiences, and the process of healing may feel like an insurmountable challenge. Others, however, grow wiser with age. They begin to see the world more clearly, understanding that true happiness and peace come from within, from their own efforts, their own self-reliance. They realize that while they may have sought fulfillment from others, most of the time those expectations led to disappointment or heartbreak. This newfound wisdom brings with it a sense of caution, a desire to protect oneself from further harm. Over time, many people learn to predict that most relationships, no matter how promising, will eventually bring some form of pain or frustration. This awareness isn't rooted in cynicism. It's a natural defense mechanism shaped by years of emotional experience. As a result, the instinct to avoid people grows stronger, almost like a Pavlovian response to the repeated disappointments of the past. The misgivings and emotional wounds that accumulate with age influence how we interact with the world around us. As a result, older individuals often find themselves withdrawing from social situations, choosing solitude over company, and seeking peace in isolation. The weight of past negative experiences makes it more difficult to engage openly with others, and with each new disappointment, the need to protect oneself from further emotional harm grows stronger. However, this retreat into isolation does not mean that all is lost. Recognizing the pattern of avoidance is an important first step toward healing. While the scars of the past may never fully disappear, they need not define our future. The key is finding a balance between being cautious and remaining open to new relationships. While past pain may have taught us to guard ourselves, it's also possible to invite new, positive connections into our lives. By doing so, we can build a life that is rich in love, wisdom, and fulfillment, one that is both protected and open to the joys of human connection. Number 3, the demands of family, work, and health. As we age, our priorities naturally evolve. What once felt important begins to shift as the demands of family, work, and health take center stage. For many, especially in midlife and beyond, these responsibilities become more time-consuming and require greater focus. While the value of family, career, and well-being is immeasurable, these commitments often leave less time and energy for socializing, something that might have been easier to balance earlier in life. Family life, in particular, becomes the main focus. Marriage and raising children bring about daily routines that revolve around caretaking, supporting a spouse, and managing a household. The responsibilities can feel endless, whether it's preparing meals, attending school events, organizing doctor appointments, or tackling everyday chores. Even if you're not directly involved in physical tasks around the house, the mental load can be heavy. These duties, though necessary and meaningful, often limit the time and energy available for socializing. With weekends consumed by family commitments, it's no longer realistic to plan spontaneous outings with friends or attend social gatherings as frequently. Work remains another major responsibility. For many, career demands persist well into middle and later years. Whether it's navigating the complexities of a leadership role, maintaining stability, or preparing for retirement, Work requires significant mental and physical energy. Long hours, commuting, deadlines, and staying competitive in a rapidly evolving market all take their toll. By the time the workday ends, many find themselves too exhausted to take on additional social commitments. Even if you enjoy connecting with others, the mental fatigue that comes from a demanding job often leaves little room for anything beyond rest and recovery. Health also plays a critical role in reshaping social patterns. As we grow older, maintaining our physical and mental health often becomes more challenging. When sickness strikes, whether it's a chronic illness, recovery from surgery, or simply the natural aches and pains of aging, people tend to withdraw from social life. The energy once reserved for outings, family visits, and social events now goes toward managing one's health, and often the fatigue that comes with being unwell makes the idea of socializing feel daunting. The simple act of caring for our own well-being can consume more time and effort, leaving little space for maintaining an active social life. Additionally, physical ailments may affect mobility or stamina, and for many, this leads to a natural pull back from more engaging social situations. It's not just about feeling tired. It's a real necessity to rest and recharge in ways that don't require much interaction or external energy. This story of my neighbor, Rose, is a powerful example of how health demands can reshape social dynamics. For the last 5 years, Rose has dedicated herself entirely to caring for her husband, who has dementia. Every day, she spent hours cooking, cleaning, and tending to his needs. Her world became smaller as she focused solely on him, and over time, they gradually cut ties with friends and family. There was simply no time or energy left for socializing. Rose's life revolved around caregiving, and her relationships with others faded into the background. Recently, her husband passed away, and now Rose sits alone by her window, quietly observing the world outside. The house feels quieter, emptier, and though she has the space to reconnect with the world, she's still adjusting to the new reality. It's a poignant reminder of how health demands, especially those related to caregiving, can shift our social lives. When our attention is consumed by the needs of others, it's easy to withdraw, and over time, it can feel like a natural part of life. Rose's story reflects the reality of caregiving and how the weight of health-related responsibilities can affect not only the individual's well-being but also their connections with others. Thus, when our health or the health of loved ones requires more attention, socializing becomes more difficult, and people tend to retreat into solitude or smaller, more manageable connections. Rose's experience shows how, when caregiving becomes a full-time job, even the most well-meaning social connections can slip away. Number 4. Emotional energy conservation and less need for validation. As we age, our emotional energy and the way we seek validation naturally evolve. In our earlier years, socializing and seeking approval from others played a significant role in our lives. We often looked to external sources for affirmation, whether it was from friends, peers, or colleagues. These interactions helped shape our identity and validate our self-worth. But as we get older, we begin to realize that external validation is no longer as important as it once was. Instead, we learn to find a deeper sense of self-worth that doesn't rely on others' opinions or approval. This shift is particularly noticeable in the way we conserve emotional energy. In youth, we might have spent a significant amount of time in social circles, constantly interacting, seeking recognition, or striving to fit in. As we age, however, the need for these external reinforcements diminishes. We become more comfortable with who we are, and with that comfort comes the realization that not every social interaction or relationship needs to be validated through constant engagement. The emotional investment required to maintain numerous superficial connections starts to feel draining, and we begin to focus on relationships that are more meaningful and nourishing. Our growing need for emotional energy conservation is driven by a combination of factors, from aging bodies to mental and emotional wear. As we age, we may experience cognitive shifts, health challenges, or the physical toll of decades of living. This can leave us feeling mentally exhausted, and as a result, we start to prioritize our emotional well-being over social obligations. Interactions that once felt energizing may now feel taxing, especially when the people around us don't provide the kind of emotional support we need or, in some cases, drain us further. This leads us to naturally withdraw from interactions that require significant emotional labor or don't offer emotional fulfillment in return. Moreover, as we grow older, we become less willing to tolerate relationships that don't contribute positively to our lives. In youth, it was common to maintain friendships out of obligation or the desire for social acceptance. However, with age, we become more discerning about who we invest our time and energy in. If a relationship feels toxic or draining, we're much quicker to cut ties, not out of malice, but simply because our emotional resources are limited. Ultimately, this evolution, from seeking validation to conserving emotional energy, empowers us to focus on what truly matters. Relationships that are authentic, supportive, and reciprocal. It's a shift toward quality over quantity, where the few meaningful connections we maintain become sources of emotional strength and fulfillment. Number 5. Embracing the freedom of self-sufficiency. As we age, a profound shift often takes place, one that revolves around the growing appeal of self-sufficiency. After a lifetime of caring for others, many find themselves yearning to focus more on their own needs, well-being, and personal fulfillment. This transition is not about retreating into isolation, but embracing independence, allowing for a greater sense of freedom and control over how we choose to live our lives. For much of our younger years, we dedicate ourselves to taking care of others, raising children, managing relationships, providing support for family and friends. These responsibilities are deeply rewarding but also demanding. As we age, the weight of these commitments often lightens, allowing for a shift toward prioritizing our own well-being. This newfound sense of self-sufficiency becomes empowering. You no longer feel obligated to maintain relationships or engage in social events simply out of duty or social expectation. The need to fulfill obligations fades, and instead, there's a growing sense of liberation in choosing when and how to connect with others, all on your terms. For many elderly individuals, home becomes a sanctuary that embodies comfort and personal preferences. After years of creating a space that reflects one's taste and needs, spending time at home can be a source of deep satisfaction. Whether it's enjoying quiet moments reading, gardening, crafting, or simply relaxing in a favorite chair, home offers a sense of control and tranquility that is unmatched. The activities we enjoy become tailored to what brings us comfort, peace, and happiness. In our later years, the focus often shifts from external validation to finding joy in the small, daily rituals that enrich our lives within the confines of our own space. However, it's important to recognize that for some elderly individuals, financial limitations, such as living on a fixed income, can make it more difficult to participate in active social events or maintain an outwardly vibrant social life. Financial constraints may restrict travel, dining out, or attending events that would require additional spending. In these cases, the pressure to engage socially may not be as prevalent, allowing seniors to lean even more into the self-sufficiency of their own home and activities. This doesn't equate to loneliness, but rather a conscious decision to find joy and simplicity. Those who have spent years building their homes and routines often find that there is enough beauty in their environment to sustain them. The shift towards self-sufficiency can also provide a greater sense of peace, knowing that happiness doesn't have to rely on external sources or other people's expectations. Instead, it comes from within, from creating a life that is fulfilling on your own terms. Ultimately, embracing self-sufficiency allows for a more balanced and rewarding experience in the later years of life. It is not a retreat from socializing, but a powerful acknowledgement that, at this stage, personal happiness is shaped by the freedom to choose and the contentment found in one's own company. Companionable silence is often undervalued, yet it holds a profound power, especially as we age. Those older individuals you see sitting quietly together, perhaps in a restaurant or a park, are experiencing life on a different level. They are in the moment, savoring a kind of peaceful presence that younger generations may not fully understand. Silence is often seen as uncomfortable, but for many seniors, it becomes a space of reflection and calm, a Zen experience, if you will. When you're engaged in conversation, your attention is divided. You're not fully present in the moment because part of your focus is on speaking, listening, and responding. But when you're in silence, you are simply being. You're savoring the food you eat, the walk you take, and the scenery around you. This ability to be fully present is a special gift that comes with age. For many of us, the shift begins gradually, perhaps in our 50s, when we start to appreciate the peacefulness of quiet and even feel irritated by unnecessary noise or people who talk just for the sake of talking. With age, it's not uncommon to speak only when you have something truly meaningful to say, and to relish those moments of stillness. As we grow older, some of the people we once knew fade away, whether through passing, drifting apart, or simply losing touch. This can reduce the number of people we talk to on a daily basis, which may leave us with more time for introspection. Sometimes, the people we care most about may no longer be able to have the deep conversations we once shared, particularly as conditions like dementia affect those closest to us. In these moments, the need for silence becomes even more apparent. It's not about loneliness. It's about understanding that words are not always necessary. There's a deep beauty in just being, in experiencing life with a calm mind and an open heart. As you continue your journey, focus on consistency, keeping up with routines that support your mental, emotional, and physical health. Create habits that nourish your spirit, whether it's through movement, healthy eating, or engaging in activities that bring you joy. Above all, remember that this time in life is not about what you've lost, but about what you've gained: wisdom, peace, and the freedom to live authentically. This stage in life is yours to shape. Embrace it with confidence, knowing that it's never too late to take control of your happiness and well-being. Thank you for watching. I hope this brought you something meaningful to reflect on. We'll be covering the remaining 4 points in the next video, so make sure to subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss it. We'd love to hear from you. What part of this piece spoke to you the most? Have you noticed your relationship with silence, solitude, or connection shifting over the years? Share your thoughts with us. Your experiences can inspire others walking a similar path. Aging isn't about fading. It's about deepening. Let's grow wiser together.